Hello, 1 month is really short. So welcome to the 30th edition of eHacks TV. So 2.5 years of eHacks. And let's start with the very first announcement. And it was due to the tweet from Hendrik Ebbers. And what happened is I initiated the Docklands project. It's a GitHub project and it comprises Docker images I use regularly in my project. So it's the base of it. Actually started on my server. So my blog, everything ran on Docker, and then I extracted the images or simplified them, and this was the idea to the project. But it was just the Docker files and build scripts, and what I did in addition. I pushed them, I created an eHacks organization on hubdocker.com, and what it basically means is you can just run all the images without building them. So they are going to be pulled from the central Docker registry, and central Docker registry, what it basically means is comparable with Maven Central, for instance. So you can just run it without building them. Actually, I'm using this by myself. It's really convenient. So this is a significant or just insignificant announcement. So depending whether you are using Docker and the Docklands images or not. Okay, and then to significant news. And the first significant news is lightning fast Java 8 and Java 9 releases. So what happened is there is an email from Bill Shannon and Java spec users. It was almost 1 week ago, so Tuesday last week. And what happens is the Oracle is reevaluating the scope and plans for Java EE 8, which is interesting. And it says, we believe we need to do more to Java EE to make it better suited for developing the next generation of cloud and microservice application. So what it sounds like Oracle would like to push even more, to push more Java 8 and Java 9. As you probably aware of, so we covered it several times. Nothing happened in the last year almost nothing happened on the JSR and JCP lists, and now something happens shortly before Java 1 conference in San Francisco. The current generation of enterprise Java application is already well supported by Java 7, which is absolutely true. And in cloud services, yes, I also evaluated them, and will probably write a short blog post about this. And Anil Gaur said it in his recent presentation to JCP the following. So what he would like to see is HTTP2, which is very important. Support from servlets, for instance, would be interesting. Configuration, which is important but not as important as HTTP2. State management, eventual consistency. So I'm really curious how this can be supported by Java EE 8 and 9. I think it's like we get something like properly base transactions, so basic availability, soft state, eventual consistency. And multi-tenancy, okay, this was also an issue, or this was a goal of Java 7, but it was cancelled. OAuth, OpenID Connect, and so forth. So this is also in significant OAuth and OpenID to be supported by Java EE. And there's another community survey similar to the survey we did in 2014. So after 3 years, we get another survey, and so I will watch and probably blog about this. So please participate in the survey. So they are significant. And discussion with Java licensees. So this is actually interesting. We'll also be looking at the results of other surveys and community input, and we'll be continuing our discussion with Java licensees. So what I still don't not get is the following. So it seems like there are some IP issues also with JCP. So I heard it over and over again, which I don't get. So how usually JCP works is the following. If Oracle would be inactive, someone else could escalate this and say, okay, look, this JSR is inactive, and could take it over. So I guess Oracle could, could postpone the process, but in one point of time, someone else could take over the JCP or JSR, not the JCP, the JSR. But what I heard multiple times is not that easy because there are IP issues. But still, even if there are IP issues, someone else could just initiate, EJB4 or CDI5 or whatever. So I'm not pretty sure how this works internally, how many politics are involved. So from the formal point of view or JCP point of view, it should be possible to take over an inactive JSR. So I'm not sure what it means Java licenses, whether there are the licenses which are sold by Oracle to third party, or whether also IP is meant here. And watch Java 1, so something happens there. Now it becomes even more interesting, with a goal of delivering Java 8 within a year. This would be great, like, 1 year nothing happens, and then we get, triple speed in 1 year. So I'm really curious about this. And this can actually happen. Why? So Bill Shannon and all the others Java EE spec leads are really great people with lots of knowledge, and they really delivered nice JSRs in the past. So I think it's absolutely possible that that they will deliver or they will push forward the JSR specs. What I also assume that Bill Shannon and all the others were not on vacations for 1 year, rather than they developed some proprietary frameworks or whatever. So now what I could do is just to extract the ideas from whatever they did and push it to a standard with, of course, involving Red Hat, IBM, and the others. So much of the initially planned work is nearly complete. It's also interesting, and then we see also they're also planning Java E9. So if it's true, so we get Java 8 very soon, and then Java E9 is in the makings, which are actually great news. And why it's significant? Because there is Java SE9 Jigsaw module system, and this will have significant impact on the JSRs. So I would say great news. There are also some articles, so check them out if you like. And yeah, this is what happened. So it was surprising official email, so you can just track the email. It's nothing hidden or private. So just check it out. And now future of Java is even brighter than it was before. As I already said multiple times, I'm not so concerned about future of Java E, because even if Java 8 will come later, let's say we will have to wait 2 years for Java 8. My clients, or most of the projects, I would say most of the projects we are doing are really innovative, already happy with it. I think the only issue is if you would get HTTP2 support. So this is the most important thing, to have HTTP2 supported really soon, because it will also change how HTML5 applications are built. Okay. So we already covered 2 things. So let's see what happens here. No questions from the chat. So now switch to the official gist. So I will just reload it because I get some last minute questions, like the last one here 2 hours ago. So last hour's question. Okay, now the first one. Do you use the GMS provider contained in the application server, or do you use a separate GMS server application? So first, I always use this which is delivered by the application server. So I never try to replace it with something else because of support issues and maintainability. In microservice environment, it's a little bit more complicated, because the GMS server has to run somewhere. So, and if you would deliver all, each microservice with an own GMS server, it is going really hard to communicate between microservices, because you need something in common. In this particular case, you could launch a central GMS server somewhere, let's say in a Docker container, but then this would be a single point of failure. So GMS is not as easy to scale as you may think, because at the end of the day, each queue and each topic are actually singletons. So there has to be a way to replicate them. So there is usually a proprietary way to replicate them, but this comes with some problems, of course, because if you have a singleton, there's a single point of failure. If you would share a queue, it is harder to keep the queue consistent. So it is the CAP theorem over and over again. How to use MDB to listen to AMQP10 queue? So AMQP is a standard, and what you will need an application server which supports AMQP or GMS server which supports AMQP, and then this is fully transparent. And for instance, I forgot what is the Whitefly AMQP. I think AMQP. It already comes with AMQP. So what you have to know is the JMS itself is just set of interfaces. There is nothing about the protocol specified in Java EE. So most of the application servers come with multiple protocols. So what Whitefly or JBoss is able to do, you can even use in-memory message passing, and without any external protocol. It was called, I think, in the past JVM IL, Java Virtual Machine Invocation Layer. And Whitefly comes with AMQP. Is that there should be somewhere a protocol. So there is AMQP and remote client, and what you will have to do is you will have to configure the JMS server to support to run as or to expose the queues as AMQP, and then you can just map message-driven beans to a regular queue. So what it means, there is no changes in source code, and you will have to reconfigure the application server. So so there's nothing to change in the source code. You don't have to recompile the applications. What you will have to do is to map your message-driven bean to a queue, which points to which uses AMQP for communication. Actually, in the past, we used the same approach to communicate with the legacy host or with host mainframes, and we used the MQ series protocol for this, for instance. Okay, so we covered the first one, and no questions from the chat, no questions from the Twitter. Where do you keep the environment-specific configuration? URL credentials to access external system. So first, if I use Docker, there are multiple possibilities to do this. For instance, currently I'm using multiple microservices in Java EE microservices which communicate with each other, and all the URLs are hard-coded. So if you hard code or the hosts are hard coded, so the URL should not change. What usually changes the host and the port number. And how it works in my case, so the host is hard coded, but it is the name of the container. And if all the microservices are running in the same Docker network, Docker will resolve the hard-coded name for you. So this is how we usually deal with URL. There is one problem with resources which are not Dockerized, like for instance databases. So in this particular case, you can still hard-code the name of the external resource. And there is in Docker, I think it's called Docker add host. If you run the Docker service, you can run with the add host. There is add host, exactly, -- add host, and what happens then is it will manipulate this etc host for you. So let's say we have a Oracle integration database, oracle.integration. Then you can launch the Docker container and say -- add host oracle.integration and the IP address, and then if you launch the Docker containers multiple times, each instance of the running Docker container will point to different resource. And the other, so let's say it was not fully answered the question. Just close the guest. So. Okay, and then it says, but the question is simpler than mentioned. The database seems to be the simplest solution, but what if you do not have the database? So GitHub, I think it was JC2. Just a small tiny project called JCache configurator for Java 7. And what it's able to do, it could fetch the configuration from JCache and inject it, so make it injectable. So there are just a few classes. It could use environment entries or JC2. So there are multiple possibilities to do this. And you see how it actually works. You can say cache put that, return the cache, and then it makes injectable. And so this is the headlands. Let's see, JC2 and headlands, and there was another one. Let's see here. The Marina project. And what the Marina goes a step further. What it's able to do, it could just inject you the cache entries from a remote Hazelcast host. So you can say at cache entry, host headlands, port, cache, key, and it will inject you the value here. So this goes a step further, and it is not without any involvement of the database. And of course, instead of using, you can just clone the projects and not use, a JCache or headlands, which this access is actually headlands via remote REST API. So it could be a remote service. You can build the same to use, for instance, etcd for the configuration. So you don't have to use the to use a database. So etcd is something like a distributed NoSQL database for configuration purposes. Okay, so I hope we covered this. I wouldn't use JNDI naming bindings. Why? Because usually you will have to, to start as singleton and put something to JNDI and then access it from JNDI, and it's not as flexible. And you will also have to modify the configuration from application server. But what is the point of modifying the configuration of the application server if you get it very easily with Docker? And by the way, JC2 and the JC2 and Marina, you don't have to restart the application. You can just they will always inject a fresh value if you don't like the cache, or if you like to cache it, it will of course inject a string once or integer once and then never again. So how do you suggest to stress test WebSockets endpoints? So another project in GitHub, I call that HellSockets. This is a simplistic one. I used this once, and what it actually is a Java 7 application where you can deploy on the server. It uses the Concurrency API, and then is able to generate lots of messages, and you can communicate with the HellSockets via REST. And if you are interested in what we spoke about, the configuration and of microservices, there is a Java EE microservices workshop. So I explain how to configure Docker application in this workshop. I think it's called. So configuration, there should be another one. This one, and service configuration with environment entries with in-memory grids and remote configuration via JAX REST is what I explained right now. So this is 15 minutes videos, and Java EE testing is the another one. And in here are also tests or performance tests WebSockets. Okay, so this you can just look at the HellSocket project and of course modify if you like. Whatever I do is Apache license, so it should work out of the box, or for you should work out of the box. It should be also commercially usable out of the box. This is what I meant. Whether it works or not has nothing to do with the license. Okay. Using JMeter with WebSocket extension, a little bit cumbersome, but yeah, you could do this. And Autobahn Test Suite is actually a nice tool. I never used that in production, but it looks promising. We just open that. So it is like Autobahn framework. Looks nice. Never tested in production, so it looks really interesting. And what about implementing a little servlet with a WebSocket client inside the doGet method, then using Apache Benchmark to metric this servlet? Absolutely. So I did something similar for JAX-RS recently. So I created a doGet method which we then access by Apache Benchmark. So this is my default way to stress this application which is not exposed directly via API. So you could absolutely do this, but this is very similar to the HellSocket approach, but HellSocket is not accessed directly. It actually translates REST calls to WebSocket calls. So which JDK do you use to build docklets? Not docklets, but docklet images. And what he mentions here is absolutely right. So what actually happened is, I use Nashorn for automation a lot, but this exec command from Nashorn, it caches the results. So what it actually means, if I launch a script using Nashorn, it will cache the string internally, and after the execution, I will see the whole output at once. So if I would build docklets with the standard Nashorn, let's say the build will take the Docker build will take 1 minute the first time because it has to fetch the resources from the internet. So I will have to wait 1 minute after without any output and then see everything at once. And what I got is a secret jar from the JDK team, and this secret jar does not cache that, and I see interactively the output. And this is what I'm using. It will come to standard JDK in one point of time. Not yet, but what it uses instead, it just uses a thread and it just pushes the output in real time to the terminal. So I will probably have to change that. But now it is not as relevant. Why not? Because we have everything in Docker Hub, so you don't have to build the Docklets images over and over again. So another great one, can you please explain or give an example of how to use concurrent context service? So I tried to use it several times, but it was without any effect. We have to say it worked as well as without the context service. The idea is very similar to container resource, I think. JAX-RS container resource context. So what resource context in JAX-RS is, you can pass a class, a sub-resource, to the method init if you have the instance, and it will inject all the JAX-RS specific stuff into it if you need this. And the context service is similar, but the problem is, if you have an instance of a class in Java EE with new, and you pass it to the managed executor service, there is nothing valuable from the managed executor service to associate with. So it was not for my purposes. It was not valuable for my purposes. What you usually would expect is that if suddenly the dependency injection will work, but this is not the job of concurrency management, rather than from CDI. So I have to admit, I never used the context service. We had once a problem with CDI and context, but it was the context service didn't help us a lot. It was just the same effect using it or not. It was just no op in my case, but could be a server bug. So no project experience with context service, I have to admit. Okay. Another good one. Oh, I would just look at the... Hey, Greece is back. The DTOs are coming now. Someone from Greece. Nice. So, And this question is about using DTO. This is a nice one because usually, I hear DTO's data transfer object, and I say, okay, what about encapsulation? Decoupling. And this one is not about decoupling rather than encapsulation. And the idea is, okay, if I would expose entities one-to-one, then per mistake, I could expose more than I like. And I will see this. For instance, I will see, secret user ID or DNA of the user or fingerprint or whatever, which was not supposed to be deserialized or exposed via remote interface. So what you could do, you could annotate the model with something, JSON provider, whatever, JSON ignore, or just XML transient. So you don't have to use the providers, just use standard JAX-P XML transient. I did it several times. If you go to my YouTube channel, you will see this already. So, or somewhere you will see this, because this was back then one of my favorite, features to hack on stage. I would just use a POJO annotated with JAX-P, and you will see JSON and XML output at the same time. Okay, and what I usually do, so actually it won't happen to me easily, because usually what happens, I develop the system test first. It's like a unit test which accesses a remote interface, and then I see what comes over the wire first. And why I'm doing this? Because of productivity. So I would like to be able to test the API without deployment. So without my system test, I will have to implement another service first, then access the remote service and hope it will work out of the box. So the next one, create DTOs. They only contain a subset of fields you want to see in your boundary. And this is, in my eyes, absolutely okay. The point is a subset. So what I see in projects is one-to-one. But if an entity has, I would say, 20 attributes and your DTO has only 5, perfect. Then conventional over-configuration does not work anymore, because you will have to use, on each field of the entity an @XML annotation just to say, please don't serialize me. So then DTO makes perfect sense, and this is actually a best practice. But if you have 20 attributes in the entity and you would like to hide one, before I would introduce a DTO, I would just annotate the one field with @XML transient. So XML transient Java doc. This is what I'm searching for. And XML transient. And if you annotate something with XML transient and you don't use external provider, it will deserialize the field as JSON or XML right out of the box. Okay, and there is a third thing which I'm using right now. I'm using the JSON-P, the JSON object. So I don't have a DTO, but I'm serializing and deserializing everything using the JSON-P Java 7 library. Why I'm using this? Because on the other side, I have React or Angular 2 right now. These are two libraries I'm using currently, and having a HTML5 clients requires you to have a nice JSON format, so it's easier to use, to consume, and to debug. And therefore, I would like to create to handcraft the JSON objects, and this JSON-P is the best one. So I would say the third option is JSON-P, and this is my preferred one if you care about the quality of the API. Otherwise, it is really hard to have nice JSON objects and nice Java objects at the same time, to maintain both sides at the same time. So a good one. I saw that you are going to do some workshops about Angular 2 and React. This is true. I did them actually for a while. So the workshop, do it for 2 or 3 years already. So the workshop was called HTML5. And in the HTML5 application workshop, we did everything. And the attendees told me, you are crazy, you can do this in one day. So, and therefore, there are upcoming workshops, and the upcoming workshops are in October. One is with React, and the other one with Angular. So this is what the question refers to. Recently, some investigation in order to understand which technology to use in our company. And it seems like these two philosophies are all but standard. Yeah, and for instance, they don't follow the specification of web component. At least they are not compatible. So I would say it is not entirely true, because what web components are, you can create your own tags, like for instance HTML5 tag, and with Shadow DOM and all the specification. But what you could do actually, for instance, one component is a Google Map. There's a component, or a Google Hangout, or whatever. You could, hide a entire application, so like map application, behind such a component. So I think the web components are coarser grained than React or Angular components. A React component could be, for instance, or is a row in a table, is a React component. A web component would be the whole table, or a whole table would be could be a web component. So Polymer is like polyfill framework for web components. So it polyfills the non-existing functionalities. Or the problem is web components are not supported by all browsers, and therefore Polymer, fills the blanks, and this is called polyfill. So Aurelia is an interesting one. This is actually really interesting. I like it. The problem is I wouldn't use it in projects because no one knows Aurelia. But what you have to know is the committer of Aurelia was also heavily involved with Angular 1 and 2 and with the with Angular router, and now he just there was some they had different opinions, and then he kept working on Aurelia. So Aurelia is I think is as old as Angular is, and Ember is a little bit more extreme, I would say. So what Ember is like Angular with extreme convention of a configuration. So I would say Ember is a special case for so in a company. I think it is harder to introduce Ember, because all the developers will have to follow a really hard path, so all the conventions. So what do you think about? So my personal point of view right now is the following. So Angular 2 is I would say a complete framework with right now a little bit crazy setup. So usually you have to choose the language, TypeScript, TypeScript is the preferable one. And the setup could, take easily at least 1 day if you do this the first time. And then it comes, it looks actually Angular 2. If you are familiar with Java EE, it really looks like Java EE. There are annotations like things they are called decorators, but they actually look like a notation. So Java EE developers will be, I would say, would be productive in a few days with Angular 2. It's absolutely, I think, it is not compatible with Angular 1. So right now I do 2 projects in parallel, Angular 2 and React. So so now about my opinion. So my personal opinion is Angular 2 is a little bit over-engineered. So I don't think you need all the stuff in Angular 2 to write an enterprise application or whatever application. React from Facebook is a little bit, I would say, is a lot simpler. So what React just is you are building tags, you combine the tags together, and this basically is. So there is nothing else involved. There is no dependency injection, nothing. It's just this. But to give you an example, so my React app has to communicate with backend REST service, which is implemented with Java 7. So and actually looked at the React docu and examples, and what I saw, there are lots of libraries which hiding HTTP like we have in Java. And we said, okay, do I really need the library? So you already know my opinion. What if I implement this out of the box with XHR, is XML HTTP request? I did it, and there were 5 lines of code. to access an external system. So okay, nice, I don't need any external library. So actually, neither my Angular 2 nor React have any external libraries projects. And I think if you have to decide between React and Angular 2, I will start with React first, and then see how it goes. Because Angular 2, there is lots of stuff involved, dependency injection and whatever, and React is just, down to the metal. What I already thought in the next project, if we have a smaller projects, not to use any external library and just go with the standard JavaScript and HTML5. It could be actually viable. Why? Because the access to DOM was greatly simplified, and you don't need a lot of fancy libraries to be productive if you are manipulating DOM. There are nice CSS selectors, and yeah. But so this is my personal opinion. So I would choose Angular 2 or React. The others one, as I suggested, Aurelia and Ember, but it never took off because it is not as popular, at least in Germany or Europe, as Angular or React is. And React is a smaller one. It also uses Shadow DOM. So meanwhile, Angular 2 also relies on Shadow DOM. The difference is, there's one an advantage. Angular 2 comes with a router out of the box, and React also has a router, but it has to be, it is a little bit more separated from React than Angular 2 is. So, and 10 times more productive, it's hard to say. I used Angular 2 and I would say I was really productive. So 10 times is, I don't think is true. And the web component standard specification, I would say, and so what I did in the workshop, I created some web components from scratch, and I would say this is a lot of to write actually. So I don't think you can actually just write an application with just the web components. Yeah, of course you could, but it's like, developing JSP apps with just JSTL. So this would be there's Java's how is called Java Standard Template Library. It was an old spec, so you could develop your own tags in JSPs, and this is like more like web components. Of course, you can say, I can develop everything with JSTL, which I actually saw. The project attempted to do this, but this was, terrible, or terrible. It was not very productive. Or some projects also saw this in JSF. They say, okay, everything is the easy components is EC or custom components in JSF, and this is of course lots of work. And by the way, the custom components in JSF are also similar to web components. So I hope I explained it somehow. So if you like, attend the workshop so we can discuss, this in 2 days is really hard, this is, yeah. So my general impression of HTML5 and JavaScript is the same state which we had in JDK 1.1, I would say. We got, five new frameworks every day. And the people, seems like the hardcore JavaScript and HTML5 developers really like modularization and dependencies. It's like the more you include in a project, the better it is. So this is my personal opinion. And coming from Java EE, I have the opposite attitude. I would like to be as lean as simple as possible by developing the HTML5 apps. Okay, there was a longer one. And any questions? Yeah, Lisbon, Portugal. Hey, and XML access type is used by access type to size of fields and properties. Okay, so and what I wanted, of course, you can do this. I always use this, and if you watch my examples, I use even the Bootstrap workshop. What I usually do is the access type is always field in my case. Okay. Have you used MVC Ozark with Whitefly? Is the a nice question from Martin. And no, I just use it with Payara. It worked out of the box. Never tried on Whitefly. Okay, so now the next one, and this is a little bit harder. So we have one entity, and the entity would like to access stuff from JNDI. So first, I would of course encapsulate the JNDI access somehow, because and it cannot be accessed with at resource annotation. Just does not work. The entities do not have any any possibility to get to have injected fields with CDI or whatever. So in this case, getters and setters are calling static methods to retrieve the setting from JNDI. So static methods are okay. So this is what I also did several times. So what you can do, you can have a static method of a utility class, import static, and then just access the things. It works, but JUnits on service methods with Ethimox are not looking nice, of course. And what you could do, of course, what I did in the past, I passed additional information to entities, and I called the pattern context holder, hopefully. Yes. And thread local context holder, and what I did, how old is it actually? Oh, 7 years. So 7 years ago, wrote the context holder pattern. And the idea is the following. So what thread local is, and represents a transaction in Java EE. Actually, a transaction usually runs synchronously and therefore in one thread. So you can store additional data in a transaction. And you can put stuff here like JNDI variables, whatever you like. And then you can have, there is no more example of this, but what you could do, of course, you can have a static utility method, which exactly, this is this one, with get, where you can get your key back. So what you could do is, you could use, for instance, a interceptor in Java EE of a service method. The interceptor runs in the same context as your service. You can inject with add resource, whatever you would like to have from JNDI. And this can be stored in the thread local, and the entities could access this from thread local. In unit tests is similar. The interceptor is actually not active in unit tests, but in unit tests, you could just, before the test, you can write a rule. If you would like to see how to implement a rule, check out project rules from me. I use that for entity manager initialization in Java EE, and you could use it to create a rule to keep the JNDI stuff somewhere, and then access them. So this is what you could do, I hope. So and whatever you do there, it does not matter. So it's just how to access the data first, and how to manipulate the data. It could be actually stored in the static utility method. Martin again. Do you think it's secure to store anonymous user data, for example, ID for the user basket and secure cookie? In theory it is. As you probably know, there are already some hacks. Where was it? Yeah, we just closed some. So what I found is this one. So exploiting browser cookies to bypass HTTPS and steal private information. So there were already problems with browsers. They were patched, but still problems. And what secure cookies are, there are cookies which are, so what cookies are, first, cookies as a small amount of information stored in browser, and cookie means a small amount of information. So cookies are small, therefore the name cookie. But the secure cookies are meant to be just transferred via SSL to the server. So the data can be only accessed is only transferred from browser to the server via SSL. Therefore, it's secure. But what you probably know is, if you are on university or on any public place, what usually happens, the admins install SSL certificates and are able to decrypt the data. So you can you are still using SSL, but the provider, not the internet provider, how to call it, the proxy is able to access the data, and it will be able to access the secure cookies as well. So it meant to be secure. There were already some hacks involved with the browsers, and of course, if you are in an environment where someone is able to decrypt the SSL communication because of certificates, and this is this is very common in larger enterprises, then someone will be able to read your secure cookie. So what reporting library would you recommend for Java EE app to generate PDF? And I think in which a lot of PDFs are generated, and it uses Jasper reports, which breaks Glassfish whenever the report gets bulky. So I think he would like to generate a larger documents. So we use several times this iText, but I don't know how it behaves for large data, for huge data and documents. We also use, but not for generation, is what's called JPedal. It's a nice Java library. Actually, also runs in Java E, but we use it rather to, or we evaluated it to extract the data from PDF. I'm not sure whether you can generate the data, but you can contact the guys from IDR, a really nice group of people. They usually attend Java 1, and this was heavily tested on Glassfish and Payara. So it should run on Java servers without any problem. So I cannot find, the conversion. So there is iText is used in larger projects, and of course you can use FOP. We used FOP in the past, but it was always a little bit slower. So Apache FOP is called Apache FOP. And it is a very old library. It works great. But if you have a huge documents, I don't know how it will behave. So in the past, it took a time until it generated the PDF, and I can remember we had some problems with memory as well. So but it's easy to test. So generate a huge XML and try to convert it to PDF. Okay, I would start with FOP and iText, and then probably ping the JPedal guys. Okay. So the next one, and what I find out is really easy to include tweets. So what I did, I just scanned my Twitter timeline and just copied some interesting tweets. Someone, so this is the tweet. Let's see. Why does HA proxy need a Java CentOS based image? It's hardly called this minimalistic. So what's that? So what he's referring to is the following. So this is the DocLens project, and the HA proxy here. This is what he refers to. It is based on my AHEX Java image or layer, and then proxy. So what it basically means, this image only runs in conjunction with the Java image. And this Java image is based, it has CentOS 7, it uses, it installs unzip, and even JDK 1.8. So you can say, you are crazy. So to run HA proxy, you will have to install everything. But what you have to know, on my server, I don't have just HA proxy. What I also have is Whitefly. So what it basically means, this Java image is exists only once on my hard disk and never more. And HA proxy and Whitefly are sharing the same image. So if I would use Alpine Linux, for instance, at the end of the day, I will need more hard disk space than just using CentOS 7 for everything. Why I'm using CentOS 7? Because most of my clients are using CentOS 7, or in few cases, SUSE Enterprise Linux. I know that Ubuntu is also crazy popular on server, but not in my projects. In my projects, CentOS and SUSE, they just dominate. And therefore, DocLens is fully based on CentOS 7, and it's fully based on inheritance. So what it means, the Derby and everything else, everyone else here, or everything else inherits from Java, even with in multiple levels. For instance, the Payara image, where is it? Just Payara, plain Payara here, inherits from Java, and Payara configured inherits from Payara, and Payara ping inherits from configured. Why this? Because the Java is only built once. Payara gets only built in case there is a new Payara release. Payara configured is the project-specific configuration, like for instance queues and memories and heap sizes. And this is only rebuilt in case this changes in my projects. And Payara ping always changes. So whenever we get a new war, it changes. Okay, so the answer is Christoph is right. You could deliver Alpine Linux, and then you would save a few hundred megabytes of hard disk space. But no one cares about hard disk space usually if there's just a few megabytes once. And if you are base everything on the same image like Java CentOS, then it is really minimalistic because this image only exists once for everything, like it is on my servers. So there is a comment from my blog, and he would like to see the. He says, okay, observer and observable are in the same war. When I put the observable in separate EGB modules, the observer in war modules, the observer was notified. This is true. So the CDI events only work in the same CDI module, which is always the case in my projects. I always have wars, usually without any internal jars. It's just war, and there was no name for this. Now we can safely call it a thin war or microservice, of course. So, using JUnit-based system tests in JMeter to do basics mode tests on performance. This is what I actually did. He refers to the Java testing course. Yeah, this is what I do for basic smoke tests. I use Apache Benchmark AB or just JMeter, and to create massive load quickly on my application and see how it behaves. So see how it behaves means I use usually Java Mission Control, access the remote service, and see what happens behind the scenes. Okay, there was someone. So Josh asked me, "Hi Adam, do you think the microprofile can become a new official profile for Java servers?" Possibly. This is one of the goals. The problem a bit is now Oracle woke up and now they are active. So what can happen? So they actually already announced that they would like to participate in Microprofile, but I personally always use the full profile, so Java 7 full. Why? Because of Docker, and there is no overhead, whatever. So the startup is very quick. There is no. I actually measured it several times on my YouTube channel because people usually don't believe me. They try to optimize the application servers, and in the end of the day, you will save 1 meg of RAM, and no one cares about this. So possibly it would be nice to have, but first, in my eyes, it should gather some traction from the community, and then see whether it can be standardized. So what what Josh refers to is Microprofile.io. This is that, and this is we already covered it in at the AHEX. It is like WebSphere guys, Red Hat, Tommy Tribe, and Payara say, okay, look, we can define a microprofile with some additional non-functional requirements, and then 6 weeks later, Oracle said, okay, we would like to push Java 8 as well. Could be a coincidence or not. Who knows? Okay. Okay. And I got some from Hans asked me about my opinion. So my fear it is a former Red Hat employee who quit Red Hat and now works for Lightband, the company which was called TypeSafe and just focused on Scala, and recently they also use Java. And then he wrote a presentation about nines against Java EE microservices. I have still no time. I was asked the last time to look at his presentation, but I think all his nines are probably right. The question is, if you look on Java EE from, let's say, academical perspective, I would say it is not really nice. Why not? So we have still Corba there, JNDI, lots of things can be standardized. And if you would, study all the APIs and say, okay, we don't need 50% of the APIs, to be productive. But bytecode is small, and you don't have to use everything which comes with Java EE. It's the same true like you don't have to use everything which comes with Angular 2. And in my eyes, it is far more productive and easy to use if I get everything at once. like Java EE, I would prefer this over, using Java EE Microprofile, let's see, with 3 APIs, and then in each project configure my own server. This is what I did before Java EE and really liked it once and then hated it because it was repeatable work over and over again. And right now I just say I would like to start a new microservice, which is based on full profile, and probably I only need 30% of this, but there is no real impact, neither on my performance, no size or whatever. So I don't know what he's criticizing here. What I can tell you is my clients don't care about Java at all. So they could say, I could do whatever I like. Microservice, we could use Node.js, Java EE or whatever. But they're usually surprised how productive we actually are with Java EE. And productivity for me is king. I don't know whether he refers to productivity here or not, but if he would, I don't think anything else can be as productive as productive, cannot be significantly more productive than Java EE in standard enterprise projects. Okay, so and there, Christoph, there was also a nice, interesting tweet. I'm sure COBOL advocates find their happy client just as fine. He said, okay, Java is the new COBOL, and this is similar. Of course, we could use, I don't know, instead of Java 8, we could use Clojure with Groovy and reactive programming. But the question is, first, how many developers will understand the mix? Is it really more understandable to an average developer than the mix of the most shiny libraries on earth? And my personal opinion is I would stick with a simple Java technology as long as possible. And if I would like to do something funky, I would choose something completely different, which does not even run on JVM, like for instance Swift or Go or whatever. But yeah, this is my opinion. But we never had to do this in project, but this is what I would do. Instead of search for new possibilities on JVM because Java EE or whatever became too boring for me, then I say, okay, if it's too boring, just forget Java and do something else. Okay, and my answer was we migrated from COBOL to Java EE several times, and the clients were happier after the migration. So you can follow this also on this tweet. So extremely interesting from Mr. Hogan. What is the current state of ESB? So in my projects, they were removed if we had the power to remove them. Why? Because they serve no real purpose. This was my observation. There was no additional value in the ESBs. Like they were prescribed by an architect, but no one could explain why they are there. And will it or something like this become part of Java EE? It actually, there were already, there was an attempt to standardize the ESB. I forgot the spec. It was like the business connectors. It was 10 years ago. And it was like business connector spec or something like this. It never took off. It seems like the popularity of SOA. Okay, SOA, in my eyes, is not popular at all. So actually, in some projects, if you mention SOA as a consultant, you are in danger, in a contract danger, I would say. Microservices, yes, they are very very popular, but also exaggerated. This is my impression. So avoid ARIA in the architectures, a lot of companies. Absolutely true. Companies end up with very large collection of services. Yes, because architects exaggerate it. So I don't know whether you remember, as Maven was introduced, I was in some projects where developer developed in shortest amount of time several hundred Maven modules in the hope they will replace something in one day. We had the same story with OSGI and Eclipse RCP. Everything had to be a plugin because to be reusable. And I don't know how often it was actually. There were some valid cases for plugins, but all projects try to find something pluggable. So in my projects, what we do is we have one microservice per team or an obvious part of an application. So we get at most, I would say, five microservices per app. And then you have already 5 teams involved. So it is never excessive. If you have more than this, you will have to justify why you have so many services. Seems to create a lots of redundant configuration. With Docker is not that bad, I would say. And it makes a lot more difficult for developers to comprehend different parts of the system. Absolutely. But with microservices done right, do not require you to do this. Microservices done right would mean that one team have only look at one part of the app, and this happens to be a microservice, and it communicates via business API or JAX-RS interfaces to a different microservices. So in current React projects, what we decided to do is that there are several parts of the application, and each part of the application becomes a microservice, so it will be easier to maintain, to replace, to version them, and to find external companies who will care about, or designers or whatever, to care about part of the system. I don't think an ESBI will help. It is actually, if you think about this, web or REST is already an ESB, because ESB was crucial for SOAP, because what ESB did is it gathered all the fine-grained messages and created a coarser message, and this is not necessary for JAX-RS API, because it could also contain links which are lazily resolved or lazily loaded. Nice. Let's see what happened here. Would you consider to use secure cookies to avoid session? If I have problem with session, yes. If there are no problems with session, why to change something? So I would just use, no, I mean, why you would like to get rid of the session? You know, I know some architects don't like sessions, but I then ask them, you know, what's the problem, and they cannot explain. So, okay, we have memory, we cannot scale, and if we have sticky sessions, for instance, in load balancer and supports this, it would work. Okay, so I think we are done. I would say see you next time or next month. At Java 1, actually. Next month is September, and I'm delivering one session in Java 1 about microservices. Only one. This time I try to avoid, you know, what I did last year. So we just delivered several sessions and couldn't participate in the conference actually as listener. And I will be only a short period of time at Java 1. So if you see me at Java 1, feel free to come to me, ping me, you know, we can drink a coffee. But I will only spend 3 days at Java 1. Next year, longer. This year, Java 1 is earlier. And the problem is I have too many concurrent projects going on right now. So thank you for watching. See you at upcoming conferences, Java 1, workshops, AirHacks in Munich, or the online workshops, or even projects. So I'm more and more in projects. And yeah, we can probably develop and hack something together. So thank you and bye.